written countless times before that if you were a foreign billionaire, if you had £1 billion lying around, there's not many of them around, but if you had £1 billion, this is the one last football club worth buying, because if you get this right, if you can get Newcastle back into the top four and compete for trophies, I don't think there's a better place to play football, and I think this city would just benefit hugely from it as well. So that's my dream. That's what I'd really like to see happen before I retire. So I've probably got about another 30 years of working, and that's what I'd like to see, Newcastle back in the top four and challenging for trophies.
Hello, welcome back to Newcastle Fans TV, and today we have the North East sports reporter from the Daily and Sunday Telegraph. It is the one and only Mr. Luke Edwards. How are you today, Luke?
I'm good. I'm slightly alarmed by the backshot to this interview, which just looks like a junkyard behind me, and a lovely 1970s wardrobe. This is actually my office, which is also the spare room, doubling up as a dumping ground for all our crap in the house. So yes, please, I apologise for the mess. But you will see the look at that, carefully planted Newcastle shirt, brand new.
Lovely stuff. Now, I like how you're very different to other journalists in the Northeast Newcastle sector. And as a journalist myself, I think I already know the answer to this, but I really want to hear it from you. I like how you question everything, you take everything with a pinch of salt. Why is it that you do that instead of jumping on any bandwagons that people leave trailing behind?
Well, the first rule of journalism, as it was taught to me, is that you should question everything, and that's what I do. And also write what you think and know. I mean, and that's what I've always done. So, I've taken a lot of stick this season, for example, over Steve Bruce. But if we go back to the summer, all I ever said is that give the guy a chance, that you never judge a manager, before they've taken charge of a game. And that was a rule I had with Joe Kinnear, and Steve McLaren, Chris Houghton, Alan Shearer, Sam Allardyce, going back all the managers that I've dealt with, going right back to Bobby Robson. So that's all I ever said. And I just think that's fair. So I always try and be fair and balanced. I have strong opinions, and I know I wind people up. There is part of me that quite enjoys doing that. But of course, if people are going to abuse me and mock me or whatever else on social media, then I will give it back. But I just have strong opinions, and I'm not afraid if those opinions don't, they're not popular, then they might upset people. But that's what I think a journalist should do. So, look, if we go to the takeover, history should teach us. I mean, I also did history at university, but history teaches us that with takeovers, never believe everything you're told or assume that everything you're being briefed or you're reading or you're hearing is accurate. And that's all I've done. So when people think that, I've been accused of not wanting the takeover to go through, which nothing could be further from the truth. I'll be absolutely delighted if this takeover happens. As I've said before on Newcastle Fans TV, before I retire, I would absolutely love to see a Newcastle United team, a club, being everything it could be, and that's a top four team, top four club in the Premier League. That was what they were when I was, a teenager in the 90s under Keegan. They were, when I started as a journalist, one of the reasons why I came to Newcastle University was because of the Keegan, the Keegan Entertainers team, and I've lived in this city ever since. So, look, when I first started as a journalist on the Journal, they were in the Champions League with Bobby Robson, and that is what I think Newcastle should be. And I want owners who are going to achieve that. I want to see the back of Mike Ashley desperately. If you go back over the last 13 years and seen how many times I've attacked Mike Ashley, criticised him, hounded him. I've been banned twice. He called me not very nice names to one of his club employees once. So look, I don't like Mike Ashley. I'm no stooge of Mike Ashley, but I do feel that, particularly with a takeover, most of this information is coming from the buyers and from a few people around the buyers. Well, I don't think we can doubt that. Mike Ashley isn't talking. He isn't briefing. He never does. That's not the way he does stuff. So look, all we've had from this takeover, from going back to January, and if you go beyond that, back to December 2017, I remember a very dark day in my journalist career, when December we all wrote that the takeover was done and Amanda Staveley was the new owner of Newcastle United. And I remember driving to game, I think it was Everton that evening, Newcastle Everton at home, and I got a call from someone saying, this is not true. It's not true. This hasn't happened. So I've always had that in the back of my mind, that whatever we're being told by that camp, yes, it's progressed. Yes, things are going well. Yes, things seem to be on course. But we should always question the information that is there. And how many times now have Newcastle United fans read somewhere or been told by someone that it's days away and it's all going to go through, only for that not to happen. So until it's confirmed, I will remain cautious, I will remain skeptic, and I think that's just the way I am as a person. You can call me pessimistic if you like, but it's not born out of any desire for this takeover not to happen. It's just that's the way I see it. We have to realise that everything we're told isn't always accurate. And until it's done, until the official confirmation happens, the club isn't being bought, we haven't got the richest owners in the world, and the takeover hasn't happened. So I just remain cautious. That's all it is.
I like how you brought up the elephant in the room there. And so the takeover, why is it, do you think, that it's taking so long? Because we've been hearing lots of reports, some saying that it's in the Premier League's hands, and then Jim White the other day saying that they might not have even started the checks yet. So what is your take on this, and how much do you think the piracy issues are having on this delay?
Well, this is the other thing that's infuriated me, really, because we keep being told there are no problems, no red flags. Well, obviously there's a problem, because it's taken I think we're moving to week 8, aren't we now? Next week? I don't know what time. Is it almost midday on Friday? It doesn't look like there's going to be an announcement today. So that's another week, where a week ago we were told it would be done this week, and it hasn't been. So, look, there obviously is a problem with the piracy issue in that, and for me, you can sum it up like this: the Premier League have fought a long, expensive and protracted legal campaign against Saudi Arabia, effectively, for piracy. So you're asking a body to sign off a deal against people they've tried to take legal action against numerous times. And I think the last legal letter they sent was to the US Senate in February, asking for the Saudi Arabian government to be on the highest level of piracy, intellectual property theft, I think they call it, to use it, give it its posh term. So look, it's obviously complicated. That doesn't mean that the takeover's not going to happen. What it means is the Premier League are in a legal minefield, and they know they are. They know they're in a legal minefield. So it's taken a long time, because they've got to make sure everything is watertight legally. And that is a very tricky thing for them to do, to separate a deal to buy a football club in private investment, so sovereign wealth fund of a regime that's going to be directly involved in the running of a football club, and they have had a legal dispute with that regime. It's very, very tricky for them. Now, that doesn't mean that the takeover is going to be blocked. And that is the only, the optimism I always have is that just because something isn't happening yet, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I've never said the takeover is off. Not once have I said the takeover is going to be blocked or it's going to be off. But it's obviously complicated. It's taking a long time. And I'm just sick and tired of people telling me it's going to be done and there are no problems, there are no red flags, and it's all bullish and confident. It's been bullish and confident for 7 weeks. And until the deal is signed off, there is always a little part of me, maybe 10, 20%, that thinks the takeover is not going to happen. And I'm sorry that sometimes I convey that, but that's just how I feel. I am, I'm slightly concerned, and I think I did an interview on Talk Sport this week where I said there was anxiety and concern on Tyneside, and then that comes out, and people are like saying, "Oh, you're the one creating the anxiety. You're the one creating the concern." I mean, I don't think I am. I'm just one person. I think there is genuine anxiety because we keep having these false deadlines. We keep being told it's going to be done in the next few days, and then it doesn't happen. That anxiety has been generated by false deadlines being created. If there wasn't a running commentary on it, we'd all be a lot calmer. But it's not me providing running commentary. I haven't done a story in the Telegraph for weeks about the takeover. It's not me providing the running commentary, but there is a running commentary, and that's what's causing problems.
And one of the other red flags, as well as the piracy issue, is the human rights issue. And how much do you think the human rights issue will play in the Premier League's final decision, as well as the police firm Jamal Khashoggi's widow, for example?
Sadly, it probably won't play as much of an important role as the piracy issue. I don't think there is, on the fit and proper persons test, I don't think there is a kind of moral clause. Look, I want this takeover to happen, but neither should we just be, blind cheerleaders for the Saudi Arabian regime. There are huge concerns about their human rights record, the war in Yemen, the murder of the journalist that you brought up, a horrific crime that happened in the embassy, Saudi embassy in Istanbul. But I don't think those are things that are really, it's awful really saying it, isn't it? I don't think they're really things that will concern the Premier League or would block it, because the fit and proper persons test doesn't have a clause that said, is this morally right? Now, is this morally right? I don't actually strictly have a problem with the Saudi Arabian government wanting to buy a football club. I've said all this before in print. If the UK government sells billions of pounds worth of arms deals to Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabian PIF are investing in all sorts of industries and all sorts of fields in America, in the UK. If you go to London, a lot of the, the huge expensive construction projects will have Saudi Arabian money in. I don't have any problem with them buying a football club, so I don't think that's right. It's not up to football to take a moral stand when the UK government is actively courting investment from the Saudi Arabia. So I don't have any problem with that. But that also doesn't mean that as Newcastle United fans, and I may have a Newcastle United shirt behind me, but I'm not a Newcastle United fan. I think you know that. I'm a Leyton Orient fan. But obviously Newcastle means a lot to me because I've lived in the city for 20 years, and in the same way that all the North East clubs mean a lot to me. But we shouldn't be blind cheerleaders for the Saudi Arabian regime if and when this takeover happens, because they are accused of some pretty terrible things. And I'm a bit worried. I mean, I cover a lot of Man City now because I cover the whole of the north of England. And I've always noticed that criticising Man City's owners tends to lead to a lot of abuse from Manchester City fans who sort of feel honour bound to leap to their defence. Well, that's not right. You don't need to defend the regime. You can defend your football club and football decisions. That's absolutely fine. But let's not get brainwashed into thinking that we need to defend the whole Saudi Arabian government and what they're doing. But look, this is separate. This is about football. This isn't about politics. It's football. And what I want more than anything, what we all want, is a competitive, successful Newcastle United again. And the only way they're going to do that is getting rid of Mike Ashley, or Mike Ashley going and selling to new owners. So I hope this takeover goes through. And I hope they bring all the things that they promised they'd bring. And if Newcastle are one of the richest clubs in the world, great. It's better for my job. It's better for the city. And imagine this city, what it would be like if it has a vibrant, successful Newcastle again. It'll be absolutely fantastic. And that's the way I feel. But that doesn't mean I don't have to have reservations. It doesn't mean I can't be cautious about what's happening with the takeover. I just think we need to get that balance right.
And you've been on the channel before, back in October 2018, when you said, if you were a billionaire, this is the one last club worth buying, because if you get this right and get Newcastle into the top four and competing for trophies. Since then, a lot has happened, with Rafa leaving, the fan base being very divided, especially over Steve Bruce and the boycotts, etc. Do you think what you said back then is still just as relevant today, considering everything that has happened since? Or do you think that Ashley has caused irreparable damage to the club and the city?
I don't think the damage that Mike Ashley has done is irreparable. Football clubs, I think it's the great Kevin Keegan quote, is these people will be, I'm going to paraphrase, but these people will be gone eventually and you'll get your club back. Look, what I said, I've always maintained it. I've even, there was an article I wrote for the Telegraph saying exactly that Newcastle were the last Premier League club worth buying. And that actual document, I believe, or so I'm told, was actually printed out and shown to potential buyers of Newcastle in the past. So I stand by every word of that. They are the last Premier League club worth buying. You've got a huge fan base. It's a one city club, passionate. I mean, if you're getting 52,000 for a team that's, in the best will in the world, the last decade has spent virtually every season, bobbing around in mid-table, struggling against relegation or in the Championship, then it's a remarkable football club as far as I'm concerned. And if you get it right, it's not just about the size of the club you get; it's just what it can be. And I think if you had a successful Newcastle, so I'll still say Newcastle rather than Newcastle as well, which always gets me in trouble with my wife. But if you get it right here, you're not talking about just football fans who will be excited and who will benefit. You're talking about an entire city, and you're looking beyond an entire city. You're looking at an urban area of about 1 million people, which people forget about Tyneside. You've got Newcastle, Gateshead, North Tyneside, South Tyneside. It's about 1 million people now, the population, and there's one club that matters to those people, or the vast majority of them anyway, and that's Newcastle United. So if I was an owner who wanted to have a club that had the potential to grow, to be more successful than it is now, but more than that, actually become bigger even than it's ever been before, then you would look at Newcastle. Because look, let's face it, Newcastle weren't well run before Mike Ashley came in either. People forget that. They weren't run before the Freddie Shepherd, Sir John Hall era. Yes, we had some great years under Sir John Hall. We had some good times under Freddie Shepherd as well. But it wasn't perfect. The fans weren't always happy then. And there was a lot of resentment towards Freddie Shepherd when he was in charge. History now judges him a lot kinder because he was obviously better than Mike Ashley, considerably better than Mike Ashley. But look, Newcastle, it's just the club that if you get it right, I can't think of anywhere better to be. I can't think of a better place to play football. I can't think of a better place to watch football. If Newcastle United is successful, it will be incredible. And it's just got that potential that you put the money in and grow it, and it can compete with the huge clubs. And I think it's also good for the Premier League as well, because at the moment, what we've got the London clubs, we've got Liverpool, and we've got the two Manchester clubs. and that's the power and wealth has been concentrated in those cities and those clubs for far, far too long. I think it's actually better for the English game as a whole if we get another club from another part of the country that can compete with those. And personally, if this takeover goes through, I'll be very, very worried if I was a Tottenham or an Arsenal or even a Chelsea fan, because they're the ones who probably have the most to lose, really, at the moment. Tottenham haven't got all that much money. Arsenal haven't got all that much money, and Roman Abramovich has stopped spending at Chelsea. So a vibrant, successful, wealthy Newcastle will be a huge threat to those London clubs, and I think that would be good for the Premier League as a whole.
What are your thoughts on Project Restart and having to play matches behind closed doors? Do you think that we might lose home advantage potentially?
Well, I think the stats from the Bundesliga are very, very interesting. I think there's only been 5 home wins out of 22 games. What saddens me about it, I'm not a big fan of football behind closed doors, and I've said as much in the paper, and I've written that in the Telegraph. I watched the Borussia Dortmund Schalke game, and I hated it, to be honest. I thought it was terrible. I just couldn't get my head around it at all. But then I watched the Bayern Munich Dortmund game on Tuesday night, was it? And actually, once your senses have adjusted to it, watching it on TV, it does get easier. But for me, look, football has never been. I'm a Leyton Orient fan. I didn't go to Leyton Orient to think I was going to see great, wonderful football. That wasn't why I fell in love with football. But it's that shared tribalism that's always got me about football. It's about being in the stadium, the noise, not just Newcastle, but for football fans everywhere. It's a day out, isn't it? It's a social event. It's part of the fabric of your day-to-day life. You look forward to the weekend and going to the game, but it's not just about the game, it's everything else around the game. So I think football is less interesting for me and less enjoyable without the fans there. Nobody is going to tell me any differently. I don't think I'm going to enjoy this behind closed doors stuff, but we also have to remember it's better than nothing. And actually having that experience of watching the second game this week in the Bundesliga game, I can kind of see I'm fairly content with it. I don't think I'll ever be happy with it, but it is better than nothing. But what probably upsets me a little bit is that Newcastle got into an FA Cup quarter-final for the first time in more than 10 years, and that game was due to be on Good Friday, wasn't it? I think before we went into lockdown. Was it not Good Friday?
It was the week after the Sheffield United game.
Right. Okay. But it was. We were talking about a St James's Park that would have been absolutely rocking, and if Newcastle were going to beat Man City, you'd probably say 8 times out of 10, Man City would win anyway. I mean, they're just a far superior team with far better players. But with that St James's Park factor, and it being the FA Cup and what the atmosphere would have been like, and we've seen it happen to teams. Even recently, Liverpool last season, Man City this season, when they drew 2-2, we've seen that when the fans are up for it and the atmosphere is intimidating and partisan, even the best teams can struggle. Now Newcastle are going to have to play one of the best teams ever in the Premier League, with probably one of the best managers ever in the Premier League, at home, or it might be a neutral game, but with no fans, and that just the chances of Newcastle winning might have been there. They just plummeted down to there because Man City got better players, and what I've seen in the Bundesliga is they are like training ground games, and unfortunately, you just can't really see Newcastle beating Man City in a game where there are no fans present, and that's a real shame for me. But look, it's better than nothing. It's good we're going to get football back. It's good we don't have to void the league. It's good we don't have to decide anything on points per game. Let's not forget Newcastle aren't safe from relegation yet either. So there is stuff still to be decided, and I'm really looking forward to it coming back. Actually,
yeah, Man City they don't like playing in front of big crowds. That is for sure. And finally, what are your thoughts on Newcastle fans being charged for next season's matches, and there being no say from the club regarding refunds at this moment in time?
Well, sadly, it doesn't surprise me, but this is the Mike Ashley year, isn't it? He doesn't care what the fans think. He looks at balance sheets rather than football clubs. It's never been about anything more for him than exposure for his retail empire. He just doesn't care. He doesn't care about the fans. He never has cared about the fans. Well, I think he did when he first arrived and was drinking pints on the terraces and wanted to be one of the lads. But as soon as that sort of enjoyment went and turned sour, he's been callous and he's been cruel. Look, the club. This is a problem across football. I know some clubs have refunded money, but certainly the money for this season should be refunded. I guess, playing devil's advocate, can they refund it at the minute when there's an ongoing takeover happening and it might not be his club in a few days, few weeks' time? So maybe that is the reason why they haven't done anything. But the lack of communication about it, the fact that Steve Bruce has still not been told by anyone, this is I find remarkable. Steve Bruce still hasn't been told by anyone employed by Mike Ashley this takeover is either happening, or in the pipeline. But that just sums up the Mike Ashley Newcastle. He doesn't care. He doesn't communicate. The fans shouldn't be paying for games that they aren't allowed to attend. You could maybe do I don't know, you could do some sort of deal where season ticket holders could get a live stream of every game home and away, maybe, and they could pay some money for that, but not the full cost of a season ticket. So we don't know what's going to happen next season yet. So I'll park next season for now because we don't know. There might be fans allowed inside the ground. No one can say for sure yet. But certainly the money for this season should have been refunded. Other clubs have done that, and it's damning that Newcastle United haven't.
And so for those of you watching, go and check him out on Twitter with the handle @LukeEdwardsTelly. And that is it. I'd like to wrap up by saying thank you very much for your time, Mr. Edwards. It has been a privilege to have you on the channel again, and we wish you well here at Newcastle Fans TV.
Make me see your stars, but the dark gets lonely. Now I see violet, I can feel silence. And the dark's all that I see when your stars have burnt out and your heart makes no sound. I'll find validity